TMNT! You've heard many internet geeks talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but now it's my turn. With the way that the Turtles made themselves such a pop culture icon, most people would have a certain relationship with the franchise one way or another. Even with me. While I can't say that I'm a huge fan like these guys, I did have my moments where I had fun with the Turtles. It could be with the animated series, old and new, the original comics that started it all, the huge collection of toys, video games like Turtles in Time, or even the live-action films, again, old and new. However, what I have in store here will be one of the lesser-known interpretations of the Turtles. The review will be looking into the 2007 animated feature by the short-lived Imagi Animation Studios simply called TMNT. At the time, it was a special moment to see the Turtles return to the big screen 14 years after the last one. But they were still pretty relevant since this was released when the 2003 series was still strong on television. So now that Leo, Don, Raph, and Mikey are back on the big screen, will their training pay off even in an animated feature? Or will this make you feel like you want them for turtle soup? Let's find out! The story. Did I come in during a bad time? Because it certainly feels like they're not ready to beat the group that we all know and love. Apparently, not only does this version serve as a reboot, but also as a follow-up to the main story, where it's been years since they've defeated the Shredder, and the Turtles have been distant to each other so that they could train more to become a better team. Throughout the whole movie, that's exactly what it feels like. We're not getting the Turtles that we promised and expected. We're looking at them way past their prime and trying to get their groove back. Because of this, the story ends up becoming really predictable with the use of the getting the band back together plot. This time, however, the focus would only be on Raph and Leo, where the two personalities would keep butting heads and screwing things up unless they work together.
We're not going anywhere until we get Splinter's blessing.
You're gonna stand here and quote a rulebook to me that you ain't been following for a year?
Look, Raph, if you got something you want to get off your shell, now's the time.
However, what makes this version different than the other interpretations is regarding the tone. In this one, it tries to be a little more brooding and darker in the veins of a Zack Snyder film, where it feels like it's trying to take itself more seriously than it actually should. I mean, sure, there are some humorous moments, but they're very rare and not even funny. Which is a problem for this film since the franchise is known for its balance of comedy and hardcore action. But speaking of the latter, that's probably the one idea that it has kind of right. At least the film does serve a good portion of action scenes where the Turtles fight off all different sorts of bad guys and contains a side plot about the villain's motives that gives out an excuse to have those fights. However, as much as this would kind of help the movie, the script would rather focus on the whole brotherhood message and try to hammer that as much as they can with Leo and Raph. The story does feel like it wants to tell a Ninja Turtles movie, but maybe not a good one. The animation. What this movie did with the animation is absolutely spectacular. If this were released back in the 1990s. But since we're talking about an animated feature from 2007, this looks weak. Let me just start off with what the Turtles look like. Their designs are as if someone wanted to make an anime version of the live-action ones from the early 90s, while the humans have that cartoonish look where it may seem fine on paper, but in computer animation, they are rather unappealing and look more like plastic. As for the visuals and monsters, they probably have the best and most creative design. But it's noticeable that they're made not for a movie, but rather for the action figures and merchandising. So my compliment goes to the toy designers on that one. But regardless on how they look, it's more how they move that's a bigger problem. Maybe they didn't have a powerful rendering system at the time, but the character animation is awful. No matter how simple or outlandish their movements are, they all feel clunky and explain why the animation would seem to have a lower quality, and the bad-looking effects don't help the situation either. However, the most damaging thing this would do to the movie is make the action scenes suffer. I will give the film that conceptually, they sound awesome and would make the moments exciting. But in execution, it ends up getting easy to be distracted by the issues than watching the fight itself. Like, take a look at this scene. I don't know what's more painful, the punch or the fake-looking rain. If there is one good thing to mention in the animation, it would probably be the backgrounds, since it does succeed capturing the franchise's point of view of New York City and the sewers underneath it. It's just too bad, though, that the city had to be inhabited by people that belong in a late 90s video game. I'm sure it has some good intentions, but I think even the TV shows have better animation than this. The characters. Well, at least I could say that these are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but maybe in the most basic form. The issue with the characters is that the movie knows who they are, it's just it doesn't want to take the time to look in depth into them. Instead, it prefers to pay attention to all the poorly animated action and the tiring message of brotherhood. As a result, we end up with a more obnoxious version of the Turtles. Like Leonardo is the leader in training, Raphael is the vigilante edgelord, Michelangelo is the Joker, and Donatello is the brains, with emphasis on the first two yelling at each other. But you also have other recurring characters that are here as well. Like April O'Neil is a mix of Leo and Dawn in a girl's body, but without the charm. Casey Jones is her clumsy boyfriend, and Master Splinter is the old sensei to the Turtles. By the way, it is worth noting that Splinter would be the last voice acting role of Mako, who did play the part well here.
This home has become like an empty shell. Each of your brothers has strengths and weaknesses. You must learn to be strong when they are weak.
As for the villains, while it's great that they're meant to deliver in the action, they do raise the question, why are they here and not Shredder? I know this is supposed to be after they killed him, but this is a reboot to the franchise. Why create new bad guys when you have a collection of memorably awesome ones to pick from? But anyways, the villains we got here instead are the Stone Generals, led by an immortal being that people call Winters. Like I said before, their purpose is more to supply the action, other than Winters, who wants to collect the 13 monsters to break his curse. But hey, there is some form of familiarity to them. Look, his henchmen are the Foot Clan, led by Karai. They don't serve much of a purpose to this film, but you can't have the Ninja Turtles without the Foot Clan, right? Well, the movie does manage to capture who these characters are and could provide some good voice acting, it just didn't put much effort into them. Sure, they can make some good animated series, but put them in an animated feature like this and the heroes in a half shell aren't even half good. TMNT is an entirely weak adaptation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that suffer from a thinly developed story, bad animation, and characters that are only a flat representation of whom audiences recognize. Not even a large supply of action scenes and decent voice acting can help save this from being one of the most unenjoyable movies of the franchise. If you really need your fill of Ninja Turtles in movie form, then I recommend to just stick with the first two live-action films. Actually, I'd even recommend the third film for being enjoyably bad and the ones from the 2010s over this one. At least you'll be able to get some substance out of them. As for this one, it managed to take something as cool as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and make something that's just forgettably bad. And that's exactly why it failed to avoid the AniMat's seal of garbage. Hey guys! guys, this is AniMat, and like I said before, considering that many people out there do have a specific relationship with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I do have a little bit of my own with the entire franchise. Not necessarily a big one, but there are some aspects that I am really familiar with. Like, one thing's for sure, I have not seen the original franchise from the late 80s. I was pretty much growing up after the show pretty much passed. But the one series that I have watched from time to time was actually the 2003 series by 4Kids. And honestly, that one was actually pretty cool. Like, I wasn't entirely hooked on it, but it does deliver some good action and some pretty decent performances on top of some nice humor to add it off. You know, maybe not the best thing to come out of TMNT, but definitely a great addition to it. And on top of that, I actually do own Turtles in Time for the Super Nintendo, and that definitely is a fun beat-em-up game. A little bit challenging, I must say, but you know, it's still a lot of fun regardless. Oh, and definitely another thing was actually, when I was young, my cousins would actually have some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toys, so maybe I wasn't directly familiar with them, but it did help me growing up to know what they look like and how to identify them. So I did have a little bit of a connection, but as I grew older, any other things that would be related to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would be because I would continuously watch people online that would really love TMNT. Like, they grew up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like Andre the Black Nerd, the Angry Video Game Nerd, and the Nostalgia Critic. So they would help me give a pretty good knowledge about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles without fully experiencing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles myself, without going through, like, oh, watching the entire show or watching all the movies and stuff like that. So it didn't give me an entire knowledge on it, it's just, it gave me a good amount of knowledge. And that's pretty much why I came to the conclusion to why TMNT basically sucks, because what it delivered me was something that I am definitely a lot more familiar with, is a boringly bad animated feature. And I've already gotten so many boringly bad animated features, so it's honestly useless to me to really add that into my knowledge on TMNT. Like, I would definitely rather watch something like the Turtles Coming Out of Their Shell tour, because yeah, that thing is terrible, but it is terrible unlike anything we have ever seen, and it is entertainingly stupid. Where with TMNT, I just feel like I've already gotten this before, and honestly, I just don't need it. So yeah, that's why I feel like it's entirely useless to have TMNT, because it's just boringly bad. That's all there is to it. But anyways, that is pretty much it with TMNT, and now it is time that we shall go and move on to a Patreon request. And this time, it shall be coming from Thomas Richardson. So I just want to start things off by saying that if you guys would like to be like Thomas, and you guys want to go and support my work while getting some awesome rewards at the same time, including but not limited to actually watching my videos before anybody else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. However, if you guys would like to go and suggest to me an animated film you would like me to review and I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So, with all that said, what is it though that Thomas would suggest me to do a review on? Well, honestly, this is actually a film that I've talked a lot about, and I've mentioned it in plenty of my other series and plenty of my other videos, except to legitimately make a review. I've already looked into this in Animation Look Back, I've already talked about this in a few top 10s, but this is the only thing that I have to do. Just make a full analytical review on this movie. So, With that said, let's fly!
Why'd you do this to yourself, Mikey? Those glory days are over. Forget about him. Get on with your life. Concentrate on your work.